On the dazzling stage of Jimmy Kimmel Live, Chuck Norris stepped out with the calm demeanor and commanding presence of a living legend. But that night's interview quickly veered beyond the usual format. As Jimmy Kimmel unleashed a barrage of sarcastic jabs and provocative questions, the atmosphere grew taut as a bowstring. The conversation turned into a dramatic showdown between a host who crossed the line and an icon who refused to be disrespected. This wasn't just a shocking television moment. It was a powerful testament to self-respect, resilience, and admirable composure. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The studio lights shone brighter than ever, reflecting off the rows of enthusiastic clapping audience members. Jimmy Kimmel strode out, his signature smile beaming, and approached the chair reserved for the night's honored guest, Chuck Norris. The martial arts legend sat there, calm and dignified, seemingly untouched by the stage's glamour. "Welcome back, Chuck Norris. It's truly an honor to have a legend here tonight," Jimmy began, his tone warm and welcoming. Chuck Norris smiled, his gaze steady. "Thank you, Jimmy. It's great to be back. Your audience is always so lively, always," Jimmy replied, then swiftly shifted gears. "You know, Chuck, you're an icon, a name synonymous with strength, invincibility, and of course the Chuck Norris facts. We can't not talk about those. How do you feel about all these larger-than-life stories about you? Like how you've counted to infinity twice?" Jimmy Kimmel chuckled, his smile still friendly but with a sharp edge in his eyes. Chuck Norris remained unruffled. "Oh, I find them entertaining. They bring joy to people, and I appreciate the fans' creativity. My family, especially my grandkids, love them. It's part of pop culture that I value. It's a way for people to relax and have a laugh." Kimmel's tone suddenly turned icy, his smile fading, his eyes glinting with intent. "But here's what I'm curious about, Chuck. Do you ever worry that these jokes have turned you into a caricature of yourself, an image that's just for laughs, with no substance left? I mean, honestly, when was the last time you did something truly worthy of the Chuck Norris legend? Or is it all just internet hype?" The studio fell silent, the audience's murmurs dying out. Chuck Norris's smile vanished. He narrowed his eyes, locking them on Jimmy Kimmel, saying nothing. His calm now carried an edge of alertness, a clear awareness of the ambush that had just begun. Chuck Norris's silence in the face of Jimmy Kimmel's provocative question thickened the air. Jimmy's friendly facade dropped, replaced by a brazen challenge, as he pressed further. "Come on, Chuck," Jimmy continued, his tone openly mocking. "You're over 80, right? We see you advertising exercise equipment. You haven't starred in a major film in years. Don't you think it's time to admit that the whole Chuck Norris mystique is just outdated marketing? A publicity stunt that no longer reflects the real you, that it's just internet-fueled myth?" Chuck Norris sat upright, his gaze unwavering under Jimmy's biting words. His composure wasn't shock but absolute control, with a storm brewing beneath. His voice was steady, deliberate, and weighty, each word like a stone. "I'm not sure I fully understand your question, Jimmy," Chuck Norris said, his eyes fixed on the host. "A person's worth isn't measured by their age or blockbuster films, but by their commitment to their principles, their relentless dedication to what they believe in. It may not be a Hollywood blockbuster, but that's the truth and meaning in my life. That's the legacy I build every day. Not in myth, but in real life, through tangible actions." Jimmy Kimmel smirked, undeterred. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes still defiant. "But that's the point, Chuck," Jimmy shot back, raising his voice, his arrogance clear. "You've built this invincible image. Have you ever really done anything as groundbreaking as Bruce Lee revolutionizing martial arts, or Jackie Chan risking his life for cinema? What have you done besides internet jokes and minor roles? Do you think you deserve the same praise as them?" Jimmy forced a laugh, his final words a subtle jab at Chuck Norris. Jimmy's awkward laughter echoed in the heavy silence. Some audience members looked visibly uncomfortable, sensing the growing insult. All eyes turned to Chuck Norris, awaiting his response. Chuck Norris took a slow, deep breath, then exhaled. He showed no anger, but his calm was now even more intimidating. His voice lowered, each word laced with control, disappointment, and an unmistakable warning. "What exactly are you trying to say, Jimmy?" Chuck Norris asked, his eyes sharp as knives, pinning Jimmy. "Say it plainly, Jimmy. Don't hide behind sarcastic remarks, baseless comparisons, or cheap jokes. You've been targeting me since I walked on this stage. You're not interested in my career. You're not interested in my life. You want to tear me down. If you have a genuine question, a real issue to debate, something of value to say, ask it. Ask it directly. If you want a discussion, state your point clearly and directly, like a man. I'm here to face whatever you bring, but I demand basic honesty and respect. Who do you think I am to be treated like this? Do you think you have the right to make me a laughingstock, to turn me into a caged animal for your amusement and your audiences? You've crossed a line, Jimmy. Be careful what you're doing. Jimmy Kimmel froze. Chuck Norris's words weren't a physical threat, but carried the weight of a judgment, a master warning an overconfident novice. The studio tension peaked, all eyes on Jimmy, waiting for his response to this direct challenge. Though tempted to push further, Jimmy sensed the fragile line he was treading. His mocking smile faltered, replaced by a serious, slightly irritated expression at being called out. He cleared his throat, trying to reclaim some of his lost confidence. I'm just being straight with you, Chuck, Jimmy began, his tone haughty, as if he were reframing the issue. I'm just saying maybe it's time to talk honestly about the gap between legendary Chuck Norrises and real Chuck Norris. I mean, you were a mid-tier action star in the 80s and 90s. You did some TV, mostly Walker Texas Ranger, right? You won a few karate tournaments back in the day, maybe some minor medals, but somehow you've become this mythic figure, worshipped like a god. I'm wondering, do you buy into your own hype, Chuck? Do you think you're really the guy from those facts, bending spoons with your mind or freezing boiling water with a glance? Or are you just an actor living a life that's not yours, caught in a delusion you've created, deceiving yourself and the public who believed in you? A heavy silence blanketed the studio. No more murmurs. The audience exchanged shocked, uneasy glances. Jimmy Kimmel's smile was gone, replaced by blatant defiance. He was playing a dangerous game. Chuck Norris stared at Jimmy Kimmel, his eyes unblinking, disappointment mixed with a quiet sadness on his face. Chuck Norris exploded in anger, but responded with a profound, commanding calm that outshone any outburst. Jimmy, Chuck Norris said, his voice lower but heavy with decades of experience, life lessons, and deep understanding of human nature. I came here tonight as a guest, invited to share my story and experiences. I came to talk about my career, my family, to share a few stories and life lessons with your audience. I came out of respect for your invitation, your show, and the people watching. I didn't come to be disrespected, to be mocked for your amusement, or to have my life's work and achievements questioned. You've crossed the line of a normal interview. You've crossed the line of acceptability. You've turned this into a personal attack, an unacceptable public humiliation. You're not just undermining my honor, but also your own credibility, and that of this show. Jimmy Kimmel laughed, but it was forced, lacking joy, only mockery, and a hint of unease. He tried to mask with arrogance. Disrespect? Ha! Come on, Chuck. I'm just asking questions. Isn't that the point of an interview? Or do you only do interviews with people who kiss your feet and pretend you're actually a superhero? Are you that afraid of the truth? Afraid of a real challenge? Of facing who you really are? Can't you handle honesty? Or do you only want flattery, and the myths you've spun for decades? The audience grew louder, some voicing discomfort and disapproval. Backstage, the production crew showed signs of worry. Some covered their mouths, unable to believe what was unfolding live. Chuck Norris looked at Jimmy Kimmel calmly, like a parent watching a stubborn child. His voice didn't rise, but each word was heavy with authority and disdain. There's a big difference, Jimmy, Chuck Norris replied, leaning slightly forward, his martial artist poise evident in his absolute stillness, each word carved into the air. There's a difference between asking questions to learn, to uncover valuable insights, to reveal truth, and trying to tear someone down for your own amusement, to boost your empty, twisted ego. What you're doing right now isn't honest journalism, or high-caliber interviewing. This isn't even good television, not something that adds real value for anyone watching. It's just cruelty, a display of an oversized ego, lacking compassion and basic professional ethics. You're abusing your position, your power, to trample on others, to prove something about yourself, and you're failing miserably at it. Chuck Norris slowly placed his hands on the table, gripping it tightly, his knuckles whitening. The tension was suffocating. Jimmy Kimmel fell silent, his face paled, his smile gone, replaced by a mix of anger and faint fear as he realized he'd gone too far. Yet he tried to cling to his last shred of pride. But in a flash, he slipped back into his careless, arrogant demeanor. He couldn't let himself be defeated so easily, especially on live TV in front of millions. "Oh, come on, Chuck," Jimmy Kimmel scoffed, his tone dripping with contempt, forcing a smirk. "Can't handle a little tough questioning? Can't face a bit of truth about yourself? What happened to the man supposedly tough as steel, who according to those facts, can freeze boiling water with a glance? Are you going to cry? Should I get you a tissue? Or do you need a lullaby, to forget the harsh truth about yourself, about being a fabricated image, a media product, that's outdated and irrelevant in today's world? You're old, Chuck. It's time to face it. Your time is over. You're just a relic of a bygone era." A deadly silence enveloped the room. The audience was stunned. Some sat with mouths agape, unable to believe their ears. Jimmy's words were no longer questioning or humor. They were outright personal derision, a direct psychological attack on a living legend's age and career. The unease spread through the studio, the stage lights seeming to strain under the tension. Chuck Norris looked at Jimmy Kimmel. His eyes didn't waver, maintaining an astonishing calm, like a deep, unfathomable lake. But in that stillness was a latent power, an energy ready to erupt at any moment. His voice rang out, completely composed, but carrying an unmistakable resolve, an inevitable conclusion. "You know, Jimmy?" Chuck Norris leaned slightly forward, his piercing gaze never leaving Jimmy. "I've been in this industry for over 40 years. I've worked with professionals who understand ethics and true dedication, and I've worked with amateurs who only care about themselves, exploiting others for fame, building careers on contempt. I've been interviewed by journalists seeking truth, delivering value, and I've been interviewed by people like you, who ask tough questions just to seem clever, to belittle their guests, turning others' lives into cheap entertainment, only to earn disdain. You've chosen that path." Chuck Norris paused for a few seconds, staring directly at Jimmy, letting his words sink in. The entire room held its breath. "And what kind am I?" Jimmy Kimmel asked, his voice trembling slightly, but still trying to maintain defiance, as if he had the right to ask, trying to regain control. He wanted Chuck Norris to deliver the final condemnation himself. "You tell me," Chuck Norris replied, his eyes sharp as blades, unwavering. His voice was low and commanding, laced with clear contempt. "Is this how you treat all your guests, or did you decide to make a special exception for me tonight? Did you think I was an easy target for your wit, someone to trample for fame, to feed your twisted ego? Did you think a legend, who's dedicated his life to martial arts, to film, to moral values, could be publicly humiliated like this without consequences? You were wrong. Dead wrong. You picked the wrong target, and you'll pay for that choice, not with fists, but with your own credibility and career." Chuck Norris's words weren't a physical threat, but carried more weight. They were a judgment of character and ethics. Jimmy Kimmel swallowed hard. He could feel the audience's anger turning toward him. "Humiliate you?" Jimmy scoffed, smirking. "Come on, Chuck. You're a public figure, making millions off this image. Don't the public deserve to know what's behind the curtain? Do you think you can live in that legendary bubble forever? Honestly, when was the last time you were in a real fight? Not movies or stunts, but a real life or death fight, where everything's on the line, every drop of sweat, every breath. Can you face that, Chuck? Can you show us the real you when backed into a corner?" "What are you asking me to prove, Jimmy?" Chuck Norris asked softly, his voice warm but heavy with an indescribable weight, like a final judgment. His eyes never left Jimmy, sharp and probing, as if weighing every word, every hidden intent. "Because if that's what this is about, if you need proof of a real fight, of my true strength, of what I've done and who I am, we can settle it right here, right now, on your stage. In front of millions watching, waiting for my answer and yours. You want a real fight. You want to see behind the curtains, so badly, to know who I am when pushed to the edge. Are you sure you want to find out, Jimmy? Because once you do, once that curtain's lifted, there's no going back. You'll face the consequences of your foolishness and disrespect. Consequences you'll never forget. The audience was utterly shocked. Silent. Fear and panic were evident on their faces. Some whispered, but no one dared move. Jimmy Kimmel froze, his face ashen. He swallowed hard, his eyes wide, his body shrinking slightly. The arrogant confidence was gone, replaced by sheer panic as he realized he'd provoked a legend beyond repair. Oh, Chuck, Jimmy said hastily, raising both hands in surrender, forcing a strained laugh, his voice trembling with pleading, as if trying to apologize. I'm not trying to fight you. Absolutely not. I'm just saying maybe it's time to admit that the whole Chuck Norris mystique is just marketing. Just show business. Nothing wrong with that. Most of Hollywood is smoke and mirrors. It's just make-believe. A constructed image. No substance. A grand deception. And you're part of it, Chuck. I'm just questioning that. No personal offense intended. This is entertainment TV. You get it? Everything's staged, hyped up. And I just want to know, is there anything behind all that glitz? Jimmy tried to downplay his actions as show business to escape the corner he was in. But his words were too feeble, lacking weight. Fear was evident in every syllable. So you think I'm just smoke and mirrors? Chuck Norris asked softly, his voice warm but carrying an indescribable weight, like a final judgment, an undeniable condemnation. I've spent my life training, living by principles I believe in, giving the truest parts of myself. I've shed blood, sweat and tears on the mat, on set. I've won international tournaments. I've disciplined myself since I was a kid. Smoke and mirrors are for liars, fakes, those who exploit images and deceive others for profit. I've proven my worth through actions, through real achievements, not empty words or staged performances like you're trying to pull. I am Chuck Norris. I am real. I'm a real person, not a constructed image like you claim. Chuck Norris leaned slightly forward, his eyes never leaving Jimmy Kimmel for a second. Jimmy, let me ask you something. Do you know the true meaning of respect? Do you understand what it is? Or do you think it's just an abstract concept, unnecessary in the entertainment world you live in? Jimmy Kimmel cleared his throat, trying to regain his defiance. Of course I know what respect means, he said dismissively, deliberately sidestepping the question, his voice regaining some bravado. I'm a professional host. I always respect my guests. I'm just doing my job. I have the right to ask whatever I want. It's my right, my responsibility to the audience. I don't think you do, Chuck Norris continued, shaking his head slightly, full of disappointment, like looking at an unteachable child. Because if you did, you'd understand that respect isn't something you automatically get just by having a popular TV show or a position of power. It's something you show others, especially when they're guests in your house, on your stage. It's basic decency, fairness in communication, acknowledging others' worth, even if you disagree with them. It's the difference between questioning and insulting. You've failed at that, miserably. And you've proven yourself unworthy of my respect, or that of anyone with self-respect and an understanding of human value. You've publicly insulted me, and you think that's professionalism. Jimmy Kimmel took a small step back. He knew he'd lost control of the situation. Anger began to flare, mixed with fear. He wanted to end this but didn't know how. In desperation, he made his final fatal mistake. This is my show, Chuck, Jimmy shouted, his fake friendliness gone, replaced by raw, impotent anger and shame. This is my house, and I'll ask any question I want. I control what happens here. If you don't like it, you can leave. Is that what you want? You want me to ask you to leave my show? You want to run from a real challenge? Are you that scared? Scared to face the truth? To admit you're just a fraud? Like I said, Jimmy Kimmel's words, if you don't like it, you can leave, echoed through the studio like a thunderclap. The utter contempt in his tone stunned the audience into silence. Jimmy stood tall, face flushed, still trying to appear dominant, though panic simmered in his eyes. Chuck Norris looked at Jimmy Kimmel calmly, but with complete resignation. There was nothing left to say. Slowly, deliberately, he rose from his chair. Every movement was perfectly controlled, unhurried, unruffled. The stillness in his actions was more oppressive than any shout, a wordless declaration of unshakable inner strength. You know, Jimmy, Chuck Norris said, his voice resonating through the now silent studio, each word clear and resolute. You asked if I'm a caricature of myself. Well listen, Chuck Norris, the legend, never gets angry, never loses his cool, never runs away. The legend stands firm like a mountain. That's what I've shown in my career. In the stories you're mocking. Jimmy Kimmel froze. He swallowed hard, acutely aware of Chuck Norris's overwhelming presence. His eyes were panicked, his body tense, as if rooted to the spot. Unable to move, he instinctively stepped back slightly. But Chuck Norris, the man. Chuck Norris continued, emphasizing each word, each one like a dagger into Jimmy's arrogant ego. Chuck Norris, the man has spent a lifetime learning discipline, respect, and honor. He learned to restrain his strength, not abuse it. He fights for justice, not cheap entertainment. He doesn't appreciate being insulted by someone who thinks a TV show gives them the right to disrespect others without cause. He doesn't tolerate disrespect, doesn't accept being made a fool. I'm not your puppet, Jimmy. I'm not your amusement. I'm a human being, and I deserve respect. Chuck Norris began removing his clip-on microphone slowly and deliberately, signaling an irreversible end. Jimmy Kimmel, in full panic, leapt from his desk, arms flailing, face pale with fear and desperation. He tried to intervene, like a drowning man, grasping at anything. Chuck, sit down, Jimmy shouted, his voice cracking, full of pleading. You're making this awkward. It's a live show. You can't do this. You're ruining everything. I'm making this awkward. Chuck Norris scoffed, but it was a laugh of contempt. His voice was cold. Jimmy, you invited me here, then spent the whole time tearing me down, making me a joke. You're disrespectful, unprofessional, shameful. You turned an interview into a personal attack, and now you say I'm making this awkward. This awkwardness is your creation, born of your arrogance, ignorance, and rudeness. You dug your own grave. Jimmy Kimmel stepped back further, stammering, his confidence gone. Look, if you can't handle a little teasing, some tough questions, some harsh truth, maybe you shouldn't do interviews, Jimmy said, his voice stripped of most of its bravado, turning into a weak, bitter hiss. This is entertainment. You have to accept it. These are the rules of the game. Don't you get the rules of this game? You're too sensitive, too outdated to understand it. No, Jimmy. Chuck Norris shook his head, full of disappointment. This isn't entertainment. This is bullying, abuse of power, a lack of professional ethics. Your inability to distinguish entertainments from bullying tells me everything about your character. You're lost in your arrogance, blinded by power. You're pathetic. Pathetic. Jimmy's voice broke, trembling slightly. He felt deeply wounded by the accusation, as if it struck his deepest insecurity. Pathetic, Chuck Norris confirmed, nodding slowly. Pathetic, insecure and desperate for attention. I've never met anyone so eager to prove their toughness that they'd attack a guest on their own show as cowardly as you have. That's the ultimate weakness, Jimmy. And now, I'm done. Goodbye. Fine, go. Run away like the real coward you are. Jimmy Kimmel screamed, his voice shattering in desperate, bitter rage. You're weak, too scared to face the truth. You don't deserve to be a legend. You're an old, cowardly man who just runs when challenged. Jimmy's final words were laced with desperation and spite, shouted as Chuck Norris turned to leave, but they rang hollow, devoid of strength or authority. Chuck Norris paused at the stage's edge, just before disappearing backstage. He turned back to look at Jimmy one last time. No words, just a slight shake of his head, more disappointed than angry, like looking at a spoiled child beyond teaching, a lost soul beyond saving. Then he turned, walking steadily, unhurried, with absolute dignity, each step radiating self-control and pride, leaving a crumbling Jimmy Kimmel behind. Jimmy stood alone, face ashen, eyes vacant, utterly shocked and humiliated. He staggered back to his desk, grasping for support. The cameras captured his pathetic attempt to regain composure, clearly failing. He mumbled incoherently, then abruptly cut to commercial, ending the show in chaos and utter disgrace. A collapse broadcast live. As soon as Chuck Norris left the stage, leaving a humiliated Jimmy Kimmel frozen in the glaring lights, the atmosphere in the Jimmy Kimmel Live studio erupted. The deadly silence shattered with audience murmurs, quickly turning into audible disapproval and open protests. Some stood, turned their backs on the stage, and walked out, unwilling to witness more disrespect and personal tragedy. Scattered boos began, then spread, engulfing the host. Jimmy Kimmel stood like a statue, face pale, eyes staring blankly into space. He tried to say something, but only disjointed stammers escaped. The cameras kept rolling, broadcasting his pitiful state. Backstage, the production team descended into chaos. Producers and directors made frantic calls. Some rushed from the control room, trying to salvage the unprecedented situation. But it was too late. The show could only cut to commercial in utter disarray. Within 5 minutes of the break, video clips of the fiery confrontation between Chuck Norris and Jimmy Kimmel exploded across social media. From X, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube to TikTok and Instagram, the clips were shared at breakneck speed. Hashtags like #JimmyKimmelDisrespect, #ChuckNorrisLegend, #TalkShowEthics, and #KimmelHumiliated trended globally, dominating every chart. The incident became the hottest topic worldwide, overshadowing any other entertainment or news event. Major news outlets like CNN, Fox News, BBC, and Reuters immediately reported the story. They looped the clips, replaying Chuck Norris's exit and Jimmy Kimmel's collapse. Morning talk shows made it their centerpiece, dissecting every word, gesture, and expression. Major newspapers and online outlets like The New York Times, The Washington Post, The Hollywood Reporter, and Variety published articles with sensational headlines like Chuck Norris delivers a moral blow to Jimmy Kimmel Live, Legend strikes back, a costly lesson for arrogance, or Kimmel Live's downfall. When ethical lines are crossed, media experts, veteran journalists, and scholars spoke out. They unreservedly condemned Jimmy Kimmel's behavior, criticizing his lack of professionalism and ethics. This wasn't tough questioning or satirical comedy. A prominent media professor said on national news, this was public bullying, a gross abuse of a host's power. Jimmy Kimmel crossed the line of acceptability, turning an interview into a shameful personal attack. A seasoned journalist wrote in a major paper, this incident is a painful reminder of how easily a media figure can lose credibility when they forget basic respect for guests and audiences. Some stayed silent, or tried to downplay the incident, but most recognized its severity, and took it as a lesson, becoming more cautious in their own interviews. Competing talk shows indirectly referenced the incident, expressing support for respecting guests and avoiding confrontational styles, or using it to teach audiences about respect in communication. Public sentiment was unforgiving. Most viewers expressed outrage and profound disappointment with Jimmy Kimmel. A tidal wave of criticism over his disrespect, professionalism and ethics was unstoppable. Social media comments demanded accountability, even calling for his resignation or firing. The network faced unprecedented pressure. Emergency meetings were held non-stop. The network dealt with a media crisis like never before. They issued a statement about reviewing the Jimmy Kimmel Live format or pausing the show for an internal investigation. The possibility of Jimmy Kimmel being taken off air or replaced became more than a rumor. It was a real prospect. The incident reshaped not only Jimmy Kimmel's career, but also how the public viewed ethics in entertainment. Chuck Norris's image, far from being tarnished, was strengthened like never before. The man who walked away with dignity, rather than stooping to insults, became a symbol of self-respect, ethics, and resolve. His words about respect, the difference between legend and man, and refusing to tolerate disrespect, became iconic quotes, widely shared as life lessons. With his calm and wisdom, Chuck Norris proved true strength lies not in muscles or fighting, but in character and dignity when facing injustice. He won not with fists, but with the gravitas of an upright man. The incident became a key case study in media and journalism schools. It was a costly lesson in media ethics, the limits of free speech, and the responsibilities of journalists. Students and professionals were encouraged to analyze it deeply, to understand the importance of respect, fairness, and professionalism in all interactions, especially in mass media. The confrontation sparked a broader discussion about talk show culture, urging producers and hosts to rethink their style and content, steering clear of personally offensive scripts or turning guests into prey for amusement. In the long term, The incident left a lasting legacy. It wasn't just an entertainment story, but a powerful reminder of the importance of personal self-respect and ethical values in all aspects of life. By refusing to be demeaned, Chuck Norris sent a clear message: honor cannot be bought or trampled. Jimmy Kimmel, through his arrogance, paid a steep price for crossing that line. The confrontation between Chuck Norris and Jimmy Kimmel in our story is more than a TV drama. It deeply reflects ethical issues in today's American society. Jimmy Kimmel, by personally attacking Chuck Norris over his age and reputation, represents a trend of abusing free speech to belittle others, especially on public platforms. This is a manifestation of a pervasive cancel culture, where the line between debate and insult is blurred, where many young people and adults easily attack others to assert their ego, lacking basic respect. In an America often marked by polarization and heated disputes, the ability to stay calm and distinguish constructive debate from personal attacks is crucial. Chuck Norris's choice to walk away from a toxic environment, refusing to tolerate disrespect, is a powerful testament to self-respect. It's advice for anyone facing bullying or derogatory remarks online: know when to stand up with words, and when to refuse to engage in a pointless fight, preserving energy and dignity. The story of Chuck Norris's resolve and dignity shows us the power of composure in the face of rudeness. If you find these lessons valuable, subscribe to the channel to not miss future in-depth analyses.